Imagine you've never seen blood, never felt pain, never feared death, and then, one day, a human doctor inserts a needle into your arm, and what comes out changes your species forever. This isn't just a medical test. It's a beginning of a galactic reckoning. In the sterile glow of the Andromedan Medical Center, nestled deep within the heart of a space station orbiting the gas giant Virex 7, an uneasy silence loomed. The air, though purified, carried a tension thick enough to cut. Dr. Elias Grant, one of the few humans stationed here, sat calmly in his diagnostic bay, scanning through a translucent screen filled with alien biometrics when the sliding door hissed open. Zar'til, a tall, bioluminescent native of the Xantharian collective, stepped in hesitantly. His emerald skin shimmered faintly under the white light, and his eyes, usually calm and calculating, darted around the room with thinly veiled anxiety. "Dr. Grant," Zar'til said in a deep, harmonic voice, "I have symptoms. Discomfort in the lower pulsation chamber. A sense of internal imbalance." Elias nodded, setting aside the data screen. "Sounds like a circulatory irregularity. Let's run a few standard panels. We'll start with a blood test." Zar'til froze. "Blood test?" he repeated, as if tasting the words and finding them bitter. "What does that entail?" "Just a small sample," Elias said with a calm smile. "I'll draw it with a needle. Won't hurt much." But Zar'til's pupils dilated rapidly, his throat sac pulsing. "You will extract liquid from my vessel? From within me?" "Yes. It's routine," Elias replied, reaching for the sterile kit. "We need to check hormone levels, toxin presence, metabolic balance. Basic stuff." "No being has ever taken my fluid essence before," Zar'til whispered, now stepping backward. "It is considered sacred, contained. We do not bleed. We cannot." Elias paused, his hand frozen midair. This wasn't the first cultural misunderstanding he'd faced, but something about Zar'til's tone unsettled him. This wasn't just fear. It was dread. Still, Zar'til eventually relented, laying his long arm out reluctantly. "Do what must be done, human." The needle pierced the thick, rubbery skin with a slight hiss. The vial began to fill. That's when Zar'til screamed. A chilling, reverberating sound echoed through the med bay as his eyes widened in primal horror. "Red! The fluid, it is red." He ripped his arm away, causing the vial to shatter on the floor. Crimson droplets splattered across the white tiles. Zar'til backed into the wall, breathing in short, mechanical bursts. Elias moved quickly to calm him. "Zar'til, it's okay. That's just blood. Your blood. This is perfectly normal for a human. But wait!" He stopped. Zar'til wasn't supposed to have red blood. The Xantharians were a chlorophyll-based species. Their circulatory fluid was a pale, translucent green, bioluminescent under UV light. Elias had treated dozens of them. Never once red, and certainly never like this. He knelt slowly, observing the shattered vial and the splatter pattern. It wasn't just blood, it was identical to human blood. Same viscosity, same iron-rich red, same smell. Zar'til looked down at his trembling hands, then back at the doctor. "What have you done to me?" he asked, voice shaking with terror. "What have humans done to me?" Elias stood up, his mind already racing through impossible scenarios. Cross-contamination, genetic modification, biological assimilation. None of it made sense. "Nothing," Elias said slowly. We couldn't." Zar'til grabbed his chest suddenly, doubling over. "It burns. Inside. A fire awakening." Elias darted for the stabilizer, but halted when Zar'til's back convulsed. Bone, or something like it, shifted beneath the surface. Skin split slightly along the spine, revealing hints of red vein tissue. Elias staggered back. No, that's not possible." The door slid open again as a nursebot rolled in, but Zar'til growled, a sound completely unnatural for his species. His hands, once delicate and three-fingered, clenched tightly into fists. "Doctor," Zar'til gasped, "what does it mean to have blood like yours?" Elias didn't answer, because deep down, he already knew, and it terrified him. Zar'til's breathing became heavier, rougher, less like the steady, rhythmic pulses of his kind, and more like a human gasping for air. His body temperature was rising. Fast. Elias reached cautiously for the biometric scanner and pointed it toward Zar'til's chest. The results on the screen didn't make any sense. Internal temperature, 101.4 Fahrenheit. Heart rate, 96 BPM. Oxygen saturation, 98%. Elias muttered aloud. "Those are my vitals," he whispered. Zar'til's physiology, his entire system, was shifting toward human baseline. Not mimicking, becoming. Zar'til's head snapped up, his expression haunted, alien eyes now shimmering with red veins that had never been there before. "I had a dream, Doctor," he murmured, swaying on his feet. 3 nights ago, I stood on a burning world. Skies black, soil gray, wind filled with voices. I held something in my hands. A heart. It beat like yours." The lights in the med bay flickered, casting brief shadows across the walls. Elias stepped forward slowly. "That wasn't a dream, Zar'til. I think your body is undergoing some kind of transformation. Something no science we know can explain. But we need to keep you stable." "No." Zar'til's voice thundered through the room, louder and deeper than before. "You do not understand. This isn't just a mutation." He grabbed the side of the med bay wall, his claws digging deep gouges into the alloy. "This is an awakening." A sudden pulse knocked Elias off his feet, an invisible shockwave that emanated from Zar'til's chest. Monitors shorted out, medbots crashed to the floor, and emergency red lights kicked in, bathing the room in the same crimson that now flowed inside the alien. Through the pulsing alarm siren, a distant sound began to echo, voices. Not from the hallway, not from the station, from inside Zar'til. A chorus, a call. He carries the flame. The old blood rises again. Elias looked up, stunned. "What is that? Who's speaking?" Zar'til turned to him, a strange sadness overtaking his face. I am not the first. There were others, long ago. Your kind calls them myths. The first travelers, the first flame-bearers. They did not die. They sowed." And then Elias understood. The scattered genetic anomalies found across human history. The inexplicable dreams ancient cultures had of visitors from stars. The reason why human DNA had so many dormant sequences that didn't seem to evolve from earthly life. It wasn't mutation. It was reclamation. Zar'til staggered again, and Elias caught him this time. His skin was hot to the touch now, burning with some deep internal energy. Zar'til looked into Elias's eyes, breathing hard. "I need your help," he said, his voice quieter now. "Before the others find out. Before the council. Before they erase me." "Who's they?" Zar'til leaned closer. "The ones who buried the truth. Who sealed the flame away in alien genomes. Who fear what happens when it returns. If they learn I've awakened, they'll kill us both." A deafening alarm tore through the station, an off-world alert. An authorized teleport signature detected. Elias whipped his head toward the scanner. "Someone's coming," he said. Zar'til nodded grimly. "And they won't be asking questions." The door to the medbay exploded inward with a concussive pulse, shards of alloy spiraling into the air like metallic snowflakes. Elias instinctively shielded Zar'til with his body, both of them crashing behind the overturned diagnostic console. Smoke hissed through the open doorway, and from it stepped 3 figures, sleek, armored, and terrifyingly silent. Not soldiers, not security, operatives. Their suits bore no insignia, no rank, no alliance. Just a thin crimson emblem on the chest, a spiral flame encircled by jagged runes. Zar'til's eyes went wide. "The silent flame," he whispered. "They found me." The lead operative raised a weapon unlike anything Elias had seen, slender, black, and humming with subsonic frequency. Not designed to stun, designed to erase. Elias stood slowly, hands raised. "This is a medical facility. You have no jurisdiction here." The operative didn't speak. Instead, a smooth synthetic voice echoed from the speaker embedded in their mask. "Target has activated legacy code. Directive, contain or destroy. Human interference, non-essential." I said stand down. Elias shouted, stepping in front of Zar'til. The operative responded by firing. The beam struck Elias squarely in the chest, except it didn't burn. Instead, it hit a shimmering barrier midair. The energy dispersed like mist around an invisible dome. Zar'til had raised his hand. "I don't know how I did that," he said, looking at his own fingers and all. "But I know I can do more." From deep within him, something answered. A thrum, like the beating of a second heart. His veins glowed faintly red, the skin around his hands cracking to reveal a light not of this world. A memory began to unfurl, not his own, but etched into his bones. Memories of ancient ships soaring across black stars, of beings tall and burning, who could fold light with a gesture, of war, betrayal, banishment, and a promise whispered into dying embers. One day, the blood will wake again. The air around Zar'til pulsed, and the silent flame operatives reeled back. Their weapons faltered. One dropped to a knee, hands clutching the sides of his helmet. "Too late," Zar'til growled. "You tried to erase the truth. You should have buried it deeper." He raised both arms. From the floor, the crimson blood he had spilled earlier lifted, suspended in midair. It swirled into a sphere, glowing brighter, vibrating with some unknown energy. The operatives fired again, but the shots twisted midair, redirected by invisible force. The sphere exploded outward, forming a ring of energy that knocked them to the ground, unconscious. Silence fell once more. Elias stayed in disbelief. Zar'til was no longer just an alien. Not anymore. He stood straighter, eyes burning with purpose, something ancient echoing behind them. A hybrid. A carrier. The bridge between what was and what must come. "I think I just declared war," Zar'til said softly. Elias stepped forward. "On who?" Zar'til turned to him. "On the ones who fear your blood. And mine. The ones who built empires on forgetting." Outside, more alarms began to blare. Spacecraft docking. Troop movement. The Council was mobilizing. But Elias and Zar'til weren't running anymore. They were awakening the flame. And this time, the galaxy would bleed red. Zar'til turned to the shattered doorway, sensing the ripple of hundreds of minds across the station. Panic. Movement. Surveillance systems spinning up like awakening eyes. The Council wouldn't wait for answers. They'd wipe the station clean before admitting the existence of a flame bearer, and especially a human link one. "We need to leave," Zar'til said, already pulling Elias by the arm. "They'll burn everything. Witnesses. Evidence. Even the air." Elias stumbled after him, heart pounding. "Where?" "We're on a station floating over a gas giant. We're surrounded." Zar'til's glowing veins pulsed brighter. "Then we tear a path through." They burst into the hallway just as the first shock troopers appeared. Council security units, humanoid but faceless, wrapped in reactive alloy and armed with sonic suppressors. They opened fire without hesitation. But before the pulse round could land, Zar'til lifted his hand again, and a wave of red light rippled from his chest. Time slowed. At least to Elias, it felt like it. The energy shimmer distorted the shots midair, bending their paths harmlessly around them like a storm sliding off a cliff. Elias couldn't understand how, but he didn't need to. This wasn't science anymore. It was inheritance. They ran, past stunned medics, past shuttering defense gates, down corridors that groaned as if the station itself feared what it carried. Zar'til led them toward Docking Bay 17, where Elias kept his personal vessel, a Terran scout-class interceptor built for speed, not combat. "Tell me you've got a jump drive on that ship," Zar'til called over his shoulder. "Experimental. Triple burn coil. But we won't have time for alignment. We won't need it." They reached the bay just as a lockdown siren screamed. The ship's bay doors were sealing shut, thick steel irises clamping down like the jaws of some great beast. But Zar'til lifted his arms and roared. A burst of force rippled outward, smashing the emergency override panel and wrenching the bay doors open again, metal screaming in protest. The air howled. Gravity fluctuated. Zar'til was bleeding now, but the blood no longer ran. It glowed, swirling in the air like strands of fire clinging to him. Elias jumped into the cockpit, hands flying across the controls. Zar'til slammed into the co-pilot seat. As the engines roared to life, Elias looked at him. "You're dying. Whatever this is, it's burning you up." Zar'til shook his head. No, I'm not dying. I'm changing. It's just not meant to happen this fast. The flames waking all at once. Elias's fingers hesitated over the ignition. What happens when you're fully awake? He asked. Zar'til looked straight ahead. The galaxy remembers what it tried to forget. The ship burst from the docking bay in a thunderous arc, shields scraping the edge of the atmospheric shield as they ripped free of Virex-7's orbit. Council fighters swarmed behind them, opening fire, but the interceptor veered into a debris field, diving into the chaos. Inside the ship, Elias activated the jump core. Coordinates. Zar'til closed his eyes, bleeding light. I don't know the name, but I see it. A ruined world. Red soil. Statues broken and buried under dust. A vault sealed by thought, not metal. You're seeing Earth. No, Zar'til whispered. Something older. Earth was the spark. This is a forge. Elias punched the drive. Reality cracked, and they vanished. On the Council's Mastercom's grid, a voice crackled to life. Cold, measured, full of dread. The flame has reignited. Human involvement confirmed. Prepare Phase 2. On the other side of the galaxy, in a place where light bends and laws of physics shiver in fear, an ancient presence opened its eyes for the first time in 1,000 years, and smiled. When Elias regained consciousness, the stars had stopped moving. The cockpit was bathed in an eerie stillness. No alarms, no beeping, just silence, and the faint red glow of warning indicators gently pulsing the corner of the screen. Zar'til was slumped forward, motionless. Zar'til. Elias reached over, checking for breath, for pulse, anything. But instead of a heartbeat, he felt heat, steady, constant, radiating like an ember buried under skin. Zar'til opened his eyes slowly. They were no longer green. They burned, crimson irises with swirling golden rings, like twin suns rising in the void. We're here, he whispered. Elias turned to the viewport. The world before them was unlike any he'd ever seen. It hung in space like a dying coal, its surface cracked and glowing in long veins of red light. Blackened mountain ranges coiled like scars across the continents. Great towers jutted from the crust, collapsed and leaning, remnants of a civilization that had reached beyond the stars and then fallen into them. Where is this? Elias asked. Zar'til unstrapped himself, rising with renewed strength. A world erased from galactic memory. You call it myth. The flame called it home. This is Kyreth, the first world. They descended through the ash-filled atmosphere, landing in a canyon surrounded by broken statues, each one depicting a different race, eyes cast upward, palms extended toward the sky in supplication. But none of them looked like gods. They looked like us. Humans. Impossible, Elias whispered. This isn't Earth. But these are human. Zar'til touched one of the statues reverently. Not human as you are now, but human as you were meant to be. Before the silence, before the great betrayal, the flame was inside you, and someone tore it out. As they stepped deeper into the ruins, strange glyphs on the walls shimmered in Zar'til's presence. The light from his blood resonated with the stones, unlocking ancient mechanisms. A pathway opened beneath the statue's base, revealing a spiral staircase carved into obsidian rock. Down they went. Each level showed more carvings, visions of beings wielding light as weapons, shaping cities with their minds, healing with touch and bending gravity like cloth. Then came the wars. Whole world split in two. The flame turned against itself. And finally, the ceiling. Zar'til stopped before the last door. His hand hovered over the obsidian lock. Beyond this point, he said, is the origin of your kind's pain. The reason you bleed red. The reason death hunts your species harder than any other. And the reason I was made. Elias asked quietly, do we want to know what's behind that door? Zar'til looked at him. No, he said, but we have to. He pressed his palm against the seal. It screamed, not in metal or sound, but in memory. Elias staggered back as the door opened with a rush of warm air and blinding light. Visions flooded his mind. A throne of fire, a voice like thunder and sorrow, a hand reaching across stars, giving fire to apes. A betrayal, The chamber they entered pulsed like the inside of a living heart. In its center stood a sarcophagus, 12 feet long, inscribed in dead languages Elias could still somehow understand. Here sleeps the first flame, the fallen king, his blood and all, his wrath buried, until the time of ash and iron, when red shall rise again. Zar'til fell to his knees. I was never just an alien, he said. I was a carrier. My people were vessels, chosen to hide the flame far from Earth, split into pieces, spread across species, planets, even time. Elias stepped closer. And me? Zar'til looked up at him. You're the last piece. The sarcophagus shuddered. Then it opened. Inside was no corpse, no skeleton, but a man, human in form, but larger, ancient, and utterly still. His skin was carved with the same glowing glyphs, and beneath his sternum a spiral flame pulsed faintly. Zar'til whispered, "He's not dead. He's waiting." Suddenly, the red glow in the chamber flared. Elias turned, and standing in the doorway was a woman in black, elegant, ageless, eyes like frozen stars. "I was hoping you wouldn't come this far," she said, voice like velvet steel. Zar'til rose slowly. "Who are you?" She smiled, stepping forward. "The last sentinel of the silence, keeper of the seal. I was placed here to ensure he never wakes." Elias narrowed his eyes. "Why?" Her expression hardened. "Because the last time he walked, stars died screaming." Zar'til instinctively stepped in front of Elias, shielding him from the woman's gaze. But her eyes never wavered. She didn't seem threatened. In fact, she almost looked mournful. "The flame was sealed for a reason," she said quietly. "He was not a tyrant. He was a warning, a reminder that even gods can go mad." Elias could barely breathe. The chamber pulsed with pressure, as if time itself held its breath. Inside the sarcophagus, the being's eyes remained closed, but the flame beneath his chest was burning brighter now, as if it sensed the nearness of its kin. Zar'til's voice was steady, but Elias could hear the tremble behind it. "You kept the galaxy afraid, disconnected, dying slowly by design, all to stop him from waking." "Because I had to," the sentinel replied. "You don't know what he is, what you both are." She turned to Elias. "He's not your ancestor. He's not your savior. He's your echo, a version of you that never forgot the flame, a fragment of humanity that burned too brightly, too long, and was cast out before it could consume everything." Elias's voice came out as a whisper. "Why not destroy him?" The sentinel's eyes darkened. "Because the flame cannot be destroyed, only divided, diluted, forgotten." Zar'til took a slow step forward. "Then maybe it's time we remember." "No," she snapped, drawing a blade of light from her sleeve. "It's time you choose." She pointed the blade toward the sarcophagus. "If he wakes, the council will fall, but so will your species. The flame is not a weapon. It's a hunger, a compulsion. It will not stop at vengeance. It will burn everything to make the galaxy clean again." Elias felt the heat rising behind him, the air thick with fire and memory. His hand moved, almost without thinking, toward the edge of the sarcophagus. The closer it came, the more he felt it. Not just heat, but recognition. The being inside was stirring. Not physically, not yet, but mentally, spiritually. It was as though a voice were calling him by a name he had never spoken but always known. Zar'til spoke quietly. "What if the galaxy needs to burn? Elias? Not in destruction, but in truth." But Elias didn't respond. He was no longer just Elias. He was remembering. Flashes. A throne room surrounded by stars. A sword of living light. A promise made at the edge of time. When I am forgotten, humanity will fall. When I am remembered, it will rise again. The sentinel stepped closer. "Please," she said, "you don't know what you're waking. Once the flame is whole, you can't put it back." Elias looked to Zar'til. "If we walk away, what happens?" Zar'til lowered his head. "The council wins. Earth rots from the inside, and the truth stays buried under fear." Elias placed his palm on the center of the sarcophagus. The flame flared, red and gold, bright as a newborn star. The man inside opened his eyes. Time stopped. Elias fell backward, gasping as the chamber exploded with light. The being rose, slowly, with the weight of centuries creaking in his bones. His presence wasn't just physical, it was dimensional. He was taller than any man should be, but felt even larger, as though the room had to bend itself to make room for him. He turned first to Zar'til, then to Elias, and then to the sentinel. His voice was like a supernova whispered through clenched teeth. "You've kept me sleeping." The sentinel fell to one knee. "I did what I had to." "You did what you feared," the flame replied. Elias struggled to his feet. "Who? What are you?" The being looked into him. "I am what you once were," he said. "What you still are? A creator of fire, a bringer of truth, the last god born of blood." Elias staggered back. "What do you want?" The flame smiled. "To finish what I started." He stepped forward, and with a gesture, the chamber walls peeled away, revealing stars beyond stars, systems hidden from galactic maps, voices long dead now whispering through space. Zar'til watched in awe as constellations realigned themselves before his eyes. The flame turned to them both. "You have called me back. Now you must decide. Will you be rulers of ash or architect of flame?" Behind them, the sentinel rose slowly, eyes wet with ancient grief. "You will burn everything," she said. The flame didn't deny it. He simply said, "Only what refuses to rise." The chamber around them dissolved into firelight and stardust, as though reality itself was giving way under the weight of the flame's return. Elias stood in stunned silence, feeling something in his blood shift. Not pain, not fear, power, raw and ancient. A feeling that somewhere deep inside, buried beneath bone and memory, something vast had been waiting for this very moment. Zar'til knelt, not in submission, but reverence. "We brought you back to bring truth to a galaxy fed on lies." The flame looked down at him, eyes glowing like twin suns being born. "Truth is not a gift, Zenthri. It is a reckoning." He turned to Elias. "And you, my echo, my broken self reforged in flesh and doubt. Will you rise or run?" Elias clenched his fists. "I didn't come here to start a war." "No," the flame replied. "You came because something in you remembered. Something in you heard me. And now you must choose. Be the match, or be the ash." The sentinel stepped forward again, her light blade flickering but still drawn. "You can still undo this. If we reseal the chamber, if we bury the core, maybe—" "You know that won't work," Zar'til interrupted. "The flame isn't just a person. It's a chain reaction. Once lit, it spreads. Through thought, through blood, through history." Elias's hands trembled. "What does that make me?" The flame stepped closer. "My voice, my vessel, my judgment." Elias shook his head. "But I'm just human. I've never wanted this. I'm not a king. I'm not a god." "No," the flame said. "You're something more dangerous. You're a human who remembers." A deep rumble echoed through the stone floor. Zar'til turned toward the sound. "Ships," he said, eyes narrowing. "The council is coming." A holographic screen blinked to life above the sarcophagus, long-range scan showing a fleet of council dreadnoughts descending from orbit. Dozens, hundreds, a full siege force, prepared to destroy Kyra from orbit. The sentinel looked to the sky, then back to Elias. "If you don't stop him, they'll bomb this world into dust. And you along with it." Elias stayed at the fleet, then at Zar'til, then at the flame. "I didn't ask for this," he whispered. The flame nodded solemnly. "No one ever asked for destiny, but it comes all the same." Elias stepped toward the center of the chamber. He raised his hand, and the blood on his palm ignited. Red light flared through the ruins, into the statues, across the mountains. The flame didn't stop him. Zar'til didn't move. The sentinel lowered her blade, because the power wasn't coming from the first flame anymore. It was coming from Elias, from the blood in his veins, from every ancestor who had ever bled, fought, burned, and screamed under the weight of history. The flame turned to face him, eyes wide. "You're more than an echo. You're a torch." Above, The first barrage of the Council's weapons fired, lances of white plasma screaming through the sky toward Kyratha's surface. But before they could land, Elias opened his eyes, now glowing brighter than even the flames. He spoke one word: "Rise!" The ground exploded upward, pillars of molten earth shielding the ruins like divine fists. Red tendrils of light burst into the sky, wrapping around the plasma rounds and swallowing them. Ships blinked out of the hologram, their engines fried, systems overwhelmed by a psychic storm. Elias fell to one knee, gasping, but smiling. Zar'til placed a hand on his shoulder. "You lit it." Elias nodded. "And now they'll all see." The flame laughed, a deep, knowing sound that shook the bones of the world. "You were the final piece all along," he said. "Not the child of my flame, but its future." He stepped forward, kneeling before Elias, and the first flame said, "My king." Fire crossed the stars, in council chambers lined with gold and silence. The warning bells began to toll. The seal was broken. The old fire walked again. And this time, humanity was no longer forgotten. They were returning, not as victims, but as the flame that started it all.